Good evening and welcome to The Report with me, John Rees. In tonight's programme, we'll be looking at a new Amnesty International report into crimes committed by Shia militias against Sunni civilians in Iraq. And we'll also be hearing about the inquest that began yesterday into the death of Dr. Abbas Khan, the British doctor killed in Syria just over a year ago. But first, MPs have voted in favour of the principle of Palestinian statehood. Last night's vote in Westminster won't affect UK foreign policy, so Yasmin Khatun asks what difference this symbolic gesture will make.
Last night, British MPs voted in favour of recognising Palestine as a state. The motion passed by 274 votes to 12 at the House of Commons. We already know the move holds no practical impact on British government policy, but many are asking what significance the motion then does hold.
Right, honourable gentleman. On this issue of
the UK doesn't classify Palestine as a state, but says it could do so at any time if it believed it would help peace efforts between Palestinians and Israel. Labour MP Jack Straw, who served as Foreign Secretary from 2001 to 2006, said he believed passing the resolution would be a meaningful gesture.
I believe that the fact of the Israelis' intemperate reaction to the very prospect of this House passing this resolution is proof that this resolution will make a difference. The only thing the Israeli government, in my view, under its present demeanour of Bibi Netanyahu, understands is pressure. And what this House will be doing this evening will be to add to the pressure on the government of Israel. That is why they're so worried about this resolution passing.
Prime Minister David Cameron abstained from the vote yesterday, which was called on by the opposition. Serving ministers were advised not to vote, but many others within the party felt the motion was a necessary move forward.
We do have a moral obligation, otherwise the Israeli land grab will become irreversible. Look, we recognised Israel after the 1948 Civil War in 1950 from the UK without determining its borders or saying what its capital would be. And on exactly those same terms, you could equally recognise the state of Palestine today, after which negotiations would still continue. You'd still have to sort some things out. But it gives them the dignity of statehood, which is theirs by right.
The vote comes as Sweden's new centre-left government is set to officially recognise Palestine in a move that has been condemned by Israel. As news of the British vote hit international shores, Israelis on the streets of Jerusalem presented their anger towards the move.
I think it's a big mistake, historical mistake like they made the past years, that they lost a lot of countries. They're going to lose the relationship with Israel as well. And I think he should change his mind and go back and say that he doesn't do it and he doesn't believe in it.
The vote was closely watched by Palestinian and Israeli authorities who are seeking to gauge European countries' readiness to act on Palestinian hopes for unilateral recognition by UN member states.
Thank you.
United Nations Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, currently visiting the territories, has demanded Israel halt its plan to expand settlements in East Jerusalem and that both sides return to peace talks for a two-state solution.
I'm very concerned about the recent announcement of plans to advance settlement in East Jerusalem, which are in clear violation of international law. This does not send the right signals, and I urge the government of Israel to reverse these activities.
A mosque was set alight in a suspected arson attack in the occupied West Bank today, and the name of an Israeli vigilante group called Price Tag was found scribbled on an outside wall. The Price Tag group has carried out scores of attacks since 2008, with its aims to exact a price for any opposition to settlement building. To many Palestinian activists, condemnation without action against the Israeli government in its continued annexation of land serve as a reminder to question the feasibility of a two-state solution. Supporters of the cause to recognise Palestine as a state continue to present two strands. Can Palestine be given a legitimate standing within a two-state solution, or will there only ever be a real solution for one? Yasmin Khatun, The Report.
Well, joining me in the studio to discuss this is Martin Linton, who's Director of Labour to Palestine, and Yousef Al-Helou, who's freelance journalist and researcher. And on Skype, we're joined by Professor Yossi Mekelberg, who's an Associate Fellow for the Middle East and North Africa programme at Chatham House. Welcome to you all. Martin, so nobody's under any illusion this is actually going to change British foreign policy. It's a symbolic victory, if you like, for the pro-Palestinian cause. But how big a propaganda victory is it?
Well, I think it will be, looking back on it in years to come, we will see this as a turning point where maybe hopefully the Israeli occupation, which has been going on for 47 years now, starts to unravel. In itself, of course, the vote has no constitutional meaning because it's a backbench motion. It doesn't tie the government. And in any case, the government will no doubt repeat that this week their intention not to recognise Palestine. But the whole atmosphere of the debate was such that, you know, you really felt that the gag was coming off. People felt free at last to speak their own minds. I mean, the very majority, 274 votes to 12, Conservative MPs who are usually very, very reluctant to criticise Israel suddenly felt free, comfortable to do so, and you know, I think we will see the language changing from now on, and the whole atmosphere around the Israel-Palestine issue. People will be willing to talk about it in much simpler terms and say what they really mean. So I think it will have a big emotional effect. You know, obviously, on the ground, if you're a Palestinian, you wake up tomorrow morning or you wake up after Britain has recognised Palestine, nothing will have changed, except maybe that small building in East Jerusalem, in the Sheikh Jarrah district of East Jerusalem, will take down a sign saying British Consulate General and put up a new sign saying British Embassy to Palestine. But that'll be the only visible change. But it's quite different from the emotional change, what it will set in motion, and that's what I think just began to happen last night.
I mean, this is another kind of brick in the wall of Israeli isolation, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, we know that the Israelis are worried about London. They think that it's a sort of centre. The Israeli cabinet has discussed London as a centre for pro-Palestinian feeling. This will be a much more direct message that that's the case, won't it?
Well, I mean, this is a symbolic achievement. It's a step in the right direction to correct a historical mistake or injustice back in 1917, Balfour Declaration. And the question is, what are the borders of the Palestinian state? The two-state solution was born dead. And of course, we've seen the negative reaction on part of the Israeli officials or pro-Israelis. As a Palestinian, of course, this is an achievement for me, and we hope that the British government will take more actions on the ground. Palestinians, of course, they are dismayed by the apathy of the so-called international community, by the inaction of some Western countries when it comes to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And I think this motion that was passed last evening, I think it's a late reaction to Israel's atrocities, especially Israel's 52-day offensive on Gaza over a month ago. So Palestinians are skeptical. Some agree, some disagree. Those who disagree, they say that such motion will give a false impression that diplomacy could work, whereas Israelis pretend that they are annoyed, but in fact I think it could be in their favor. Palestinians on the ground, they did not really pay that much attention. They know that Palestine has already been recognized as a non-member observer state at the United Nations. But what they need a sovereign state and end to the occupation, and such motion will not go into end the occupation.
Professor Mekelberg, Yousef was suggesting there that maybe if the Israelis were smart, they'd see this as an opportunity. But do you think they're too far down the road to even see that as an opportunity?
Well, I really hope that the way that it will be interpreted in Israel is understanding that there is a change in the international community. I think the vote yesterday, and especially the sheer numbers, as mentioned before, it come out of frustration of the deadlock for so long. 21 years since Oslo, and still we discuss the very same issue that Oslo should have resolved long time ago. of having two states, a Palestinian state and a Jewish state, living side by side peacefully. And here we are still talking about it. And more settlements are built, and we had through another terrible round of violence that left so many people dead during the summer. And it's not only the British decision, it's also, we saw in Sweden the government changing its mind. And I think this can be actually a signal of things to happen, to come in other countries, in Europe and beyond. So this is the kind of situation that we are now in. It's also frustration with the United States as being the only country to veto the recognition of a Palestinian state in the Security Council, while the vote in the General Assembly was 138 in favor of the upgrading of Palestinians' status in the United Nations, but representing actually wanting a Palestinian state. What I hope that it will send to everyone the right message the Palestinians, that they have diplomatic support and it's not support to resort to other measures, and send the right message to Israel that the tide in the international community is a tide that goes against the expansion of settlement, against putting more and more barriers in front of any peace negotiations, and the needs for negotiated peace and sooner rather than later. But let me just say one thing to the speaker before me. It's not coming to reverse the Balfour Declaration. It's come to add to the Balfour Declaration. It doesn't change the support of a Jewish home in Palestine, but to add to it also a Palestinian state within the same territory.
Okay, we'll come back to that. First of all, Martin, though, in a way, this vote, do you see it in part as a product of the campaigning that's gone on? Because over the summer we had the biggest demonstration ever in favour of the Palestinians in reaction to the attack on Gaza. Do you think this is something that's now penetrating the House of Commons?
As always, it's a product of two things. One is the shock that MPs felt, like everybody else. First, the collapse of the talks, the crackdown in the West Bank in June and July, the war on Gaza in August, July and August, and then Israel's gratuitous announcement of new settlements in September. So all of these things came as a big shock to some members of Parliament, and we heard last night some of them describing how it had changed their minds. But at the same time, yes, of course, there has been a huge campaign, not only the demonstration you refer to in August, 150,000, however many it was one of the biggest in Europe. Also, there was a huge number of people have written to their members of Parliament about this.
It was a huge lobbying operation.
Just in the last 10 days running up to this vote, 58,000 people wrote to their local MP. That's just through one website. They recorded 58,000 letters from people to their own MPs. There's no way anybody can write more than one of these. They only write one letter to their MP. So some MPs only got a small number, but other MPs got over 1,000 of these emails. Now, if you are already reeling from the shock of seeing the war on your television screen, and then you get 1,000 emails from your constituents, well, the two together have a profound effect. And we can see quite clearly from the members of Parliament who got the most emails during the war on Gaza, they were the ones who turned up to discuss to condemn the Gaza war in the House of Commons. It has a direct effect on members of Parliament. So,
let me just give you a chance to respond to the point that Professor Mekelberg was making there. And I guess this is some of the criticism of this resolution comes from those who aren't friends of Israel, but who are friends with the Palestinians and don't see a two-state solution as possible. So, do you think there's some complexities here that need unpacking?
Well, I think wise officials or world leaders, especially in the West or in Israel, they know that there will never be stability in the Middle East without a just solution to the Palestinian conflict. Now, the right of Palestinian refugees scattered all over the world will only return back to the one-state solution is the only solution that will guarantee their return from where they were expelled back in 1948. Those who oppose Palestinian officials or supporters, of course, they say that the two-state solution is a racist solution, and Israel does not have a constitution, does not have a clear, defined borders. what will be the borders of the future Palestinian state. And the peace talks is total fiasco. I mean, Palestinians in general, they reach a conclusion that Israel is not interested in peace. And let's not forget the negative role of the U.S. administration. The U.S. administration has never been an honest peace broker. So, I mean, Palestinians are pessimistic, but such move could actually pave the way, could give some hope that more countries would follow suit. Sweden was first, Britain number 2, and let's hope that something will be on the ground.
The logic of these two things is slightly different. That in actual fact, although formally what statehood would do is to sort of enshrine a two-state solution or open the door to it in the way that Professor Mekelberg was saying, but in fact the dynamic in the current environment will be to encourage a Palestinian movement which has got more of a one-state solution in mind.
Well, I don't honestly think so because, you know, for 40 years, from 1948 to 1988, the Palestinians were fighting for a one-state solution. And it was only when, you know, when that campaign totally failed and they were driven out of, not only out of Palestine, but out of Lebanon, out of Tunisia, so that they gave up that and they reluctantly recognized Israel. Now they're fighting for a two-state solution. But of course, every Palestinian would have liked there to be a one-state solution. It's just that that is not a realistic offer. I mean, one has to understand the points of principle, but one also has to understand that to get from where you are to where you want to get to, it often requires a step-at-a-time approach.
I just want to go back finally to Professor Mekelberg on that question. Do you think that, I mean, you said it's not getting rid of Balfour, it's adding to the Balfour Declaration, and therefore it embodies the idea of a two-state solution. But do you think that actually that might be the logic of it on paper, but the logic of it in practice will be to encourage Palestinians to the belief that something even better than that might be possible?
Well, who said that one-state solution is better than two-state solution? That actually baffles me a little bit. I think
well,
that...
most Palestinians in opinion polls say that.
Oh, they don't actually.
Well, we've been reading
let me correct
polls,
you. Actually, most Palestinians in Palestine say that they would like a two-state solution, not one-state solution. The one-state solution is a sort of an intellectual exercise mainly played outside Palestine. Palestinians want self-determination. That's what they are fighting for, that they were sacrificed. And all of a sudden, some people outside Palestine decided to deprive them of the right to define who they are, to build their own identity, and want to force them to live with 6 million other Jewish people in Israel. Who said that that's what they want? And
okay.
I think most of them should build their own identity. And I think actually believe, for one, that we should build a two-state solution in a one-state reality, because it's a very small place and they need to work together, but not deprive Palestinians from the right for statehood and nationhood.
Okay, well, that debate certainly won't end here, and we will be returning to it, I'm sure, in future editions of the report. But for now, let's take a look at the rest of the